I think dentistry is one of the greatest small businesses in the world. And I love that I get to play in it every single day and be able to help practices and teams just be able to totally thrive. Doesn't matter the economy, doesn't matter where you're at. There's certain principles that apply to every single person in practice. And I love being able to share that.
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry look like to you? I'm Katie Polson, a dental hygienist and your host. Welcome to another episode of Growth in Dentistry. I'm Katie Polson, and we are continuing our conversation on keeping your team during a staffing shortage. But before we get started, just like always, I have a little bit of housekeeping that we want to get through. I want to, for those of you that are first-time listeners, first of all, welcome. We're so glad to have you here with us, and you're in for a real treat because this is going to be a great episode. So if this is your first episode, it's a great one to start on. For those of you that are first-time listeners or those that haven't taken the opportunity to join our Facebook Dental Intelligence podcast community, I would really encourage you to go do that. It's a fun place to get just to be with other like-minded data nerds, and we chat about data and dentistry. I mean, there's not two more nerdy things on the planet, and we just hang out together. It's a fun place to come and join. And for those of you that are our current customers, we have launched a great tool inside of your growth platform called the DI community. And it's a space where our current customers can go and ask questions of each other on several different topics, how to implement the data that you're seeing, best practices and things that they are doing. It really is such a valuable tool, and we're so excited to be able to offer that to our customers. If you are not a current customer and you want to be one, we have a special offer for those that are listeners to our show. You will get a $50 gift card when you complete a demo by going to get.dentalintel.com/podcast. And that link will also be in our show notes. Without further ado, let's get into our topic today. Hello. I'm not gonna mess up on important names. Bob Spiel and Bryton Nield. That for some reason is a tongue twister for me. But either way, Dentist Partner Pros, and we're so excited to talk about this topic today. We are discussing creating a team of lifers, and I've used that term before on the podcast previously.
Love that idea, Katie.
Yes. But instead of focusing on the team, we're going to focus on the leaders today. So what better people than these two people to talk about that? So Bob and Bryton, will you please introduce yourselves? And for those of you that don't have any knowledge base of who you are.
You bet, love to. I'll kick off and then let Bryton go from there. Katie, first, just to let you know, we absolutely love Dental Intel. I've been consulting in dentistry now for almost 15 years after having come out of medicine as a hospital and surgical center CEO before climbing into this incredible industry, which we love with all our hearts. But DI is a game changer. It's a game changer for consultants. It's a game changer for team members. It's a game changer for owners. And the whole system can appear to be a little daunting at times because there is so much there. But one of the things I encourage clients is, you know what, don't feel like you have to eat the whole steak at once. Even though it may taste really good, you can just take one sliver and realize, man, this is one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, that's great advice.
DI is just such an incredible game changer to really understand. One of the privileges that I have in dentistry is I get to teach a course for Dr. Gordon Christensen every year here in Provo, Utah, for his practical clinical courses on leadership. And the point that I make is numbers tell a story. What's the story?
Mm-hmm,
okay, and that's the key
here.
part. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I mentioned coming out of dentistry. You know, you have two paths to get to this industry. Dentistry either finds you or you find it. Dentistry definitely found me, and have just loved the opportunity to work with amazing practices all around the country. But a passion that both Bryton and I share is leadership, because we've seen the absolute impact that leaders can make, both personally on their own lives, on their families, but also on the team members that they lead. And there's a phrase that I learned years ago from a very, very dear friend who's a great leader on leadership mentor, who said, Bob, you never can run faster than your leader.
Right.
And that's kind of a stunning statement, but it's very true. The corollary to that then is that if a team really, or a leader wants to take their team to new heights, it actually starts with taking themselves up there. Okay, it's a process of individual growth to begin with, that then becomes a process of team growth after that.
That's
And
really well
we
said.
love to be able to help make that happen, and that's why we formed Dentist Partner Pros, is to be able to help make the foundation of the practice solid. Because as goes the partners, as goes the owner, so goes the practice.
That's really awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Bryton, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us on, Katie. Bob and I have been super excited. So really briefly about me, I've been in small business the last 5 years, 6 years now, and I just love creating thriving teams. It's what I'm passionate about. I've been able to help take multiple businesses to 7 figures in a short period of time, but that's much less important than the work I'm doing now, which is what has brought Bob and I together. Dentistry definitely found me, just like it found him. But it's something that I absolutely love. I think dentistry is one of the greatest small businesses in the world. And I love that I get to play in it every single day and be able to help practices and teams just be able to totally thrive. Doesn't matter the economy, doesn't matter where you're at. There's certain principles that apply to every single person in practice. And I love being able to share that. So
That's awesome.
Dentist Partner Pros, we create thriving teams, associateships, and partnerships. We help everyone. So
great. That's so great. Well, let's get into it, because like I said before, the previous episodes, we've talked really about the team a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And now we were going to take a top-down approach and really get into the leadership and the associates, and for those of you that might have associates that are struggling with them as well. So you've got this catchy spin on it, I guess, in leadership, in particular partnerships, and treating it like a marriage. And we had such a fun conversation a couple of weeks ago, in that you guys are the matchmakers, the priests, the marriage therapists. And I loved that quote. But all trying to stop dental divorce. So it's such a catchy thing, but as I've really thought about it since our conversation, it makes perfect sense. So go ahead and explain what is this dental divorce cycle, first of all, and then how does that apply to practices and team members? Whoever wants to take it.
Bryton, you want to start with that, and then I'll follow up?
Sure,
Man,
I'll jump into it.
that is a meaty question that we'll try to make really simple.
Yes,
but it affects so many practices and practice owners.
Dentistry is unique. It's unique compared to most other industries because when you have two dentists working under the same roof, it's not like a CEO and a CFO where they kind of have different roles and then they work together on a team. They almost have identical roles compared to medical doctors where they're on parallel tracks. They work, they see their patients, and then they might converse every once in a while. Dentists work hand in hand with the same team, with the same patients. And especially in today's more group private practice, it's so integrated. And so really the only way that we could accurately describe that intimate of a partnership in business is to call it a dental marriage. There's no better way for us to be able to actually describe that. And so there's this phenomenon in dentistry where 75% of dental associateships are failing within the first year. That's 3 out of 4 dental associateships. And out of those that make it through, the remainder, 90% of partnerships fail within the first 5 years. Okay, so it's just this really taboo thing. And I think for the longest time, we've just accepted that, hey, this is the reality. The problem is when you have what we call a dental divorce, associateships and partnerships break apart, they're not the only two that are affected. The kids or the team members, or however you want to refer to them, because they're definitely not kids, but they are massively affected. The patients are affected. It's an extremely expensive an emotionally taxing mistake to continue to have the 75% failure rate. It's just, it is so, and you can go into the numbers and all that stuff, but I think more often than not, the emotional and the stress level that causes of going through this dental divorce, if you will, it's all encompassing. And frankly, the divorce is going to get pretty dang nasty if you've ever experienced a partnership falling apart.
And Katie, it does kind of create this also, not to borrow this metaphor further, but a runaway bride phenomenon, where practice owners and associates who've been burned by this start to really have this innate sense of distrust. Okay, we've seen that especially with associates in the market these days, where they've been promised one thing, promised mentorship, promised this, promised that. None of it happened. And we're in a mode now of actually trying to create positive dental marriages, so to speak, or partnerships. But it's interesting to see the mindset of those that have been burned, that they kind of walk into this with this innate sense of, I don't know if they're telling me the truth. I don't know if this can be as good as they're saying, because the last people that sold me on this opportunity, that's just what they were doing. They were selling me.
I wanted to even just bring up to take it even a little bit further, and what we see a lot, and why people get dental intelligence a lot of times is they want to see if, you know, like profitability wise, if they can bring on another associate, right?
Absolutely, yes.
But I think they are single forever, right? Because they're so afraid of these horror stories that they don't ever dip their toe into bringing on an associate, because they're so scared of that happening to them. And so I love that you guys are available to help them do it correctly. Yeah.
Well, to just provide some background, I was blown away some 12 years ago when Linda Miles, who's a name that some of your audience may still remember, she was a huge powerhouse in the dental community back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Great dental consultant. And we became close friends. And one time on a call, she just said, well, you know, Bob, 90% of associates that fail, or no, 75% of associates that fail within a year. And I couldn't believe it. It was like, you got to be kidding me, because that never happens anywhere else.
Yeah.
But to Bryton's point, it's because these relationships are so intimate that if you just look for somebody with a license and a pulse and think you're going to get along, this is where we get it.
Yeah.
This failure rate, you know, and I've maintained if we had 75% of our implants fail, the industry would have such an uprising, we do something about it. But because the costs of this are really unknown and unknowable, even though they're very real, we just accept this is just how it is. And it doesn't have to be anymore. And what we did was come up with a model that actually works 90% of the time successfully. And it's been working this way for 10 years. And it's viewing it from a different paradigm of knowing what are the characteristics of the person who's going to succeed in this practice, then interview to those, survey to those, and take them through a process of creating a win-win agreement and then staying engaged in a relationship 18 months afterwards. And that's what we love to do. And the impact of that to a team, to an owner, is so amazing. Once there's a sense of, wow, you know, we really are getting along well. I now have somebody I can bounce ideas off of. The synergy, the energy, the ability now to take time off and not shut down the practice, the ability to actually have now a partner to be able to work together with. It's so exciting when it happens. Okay,
that's what they're looking for. When they bring on an associate. That's what the goal is. But so
and then the team feeds off of that energy as well. And so suddenly these disruptions in the force that happen with team members who aren't happy, or, you know, there's so many things that can happen that create unhappy team members. But it's just like, again, a marriage. If mom and dad aren't happy, you know what? Sadly, the kids know it. The kids become somewhat defensive of that because they're a part of the system. in a practice, if mom and dad aren't happy, the kids start to wonder, well, should I be somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if they bring on someone that nobody's trusting or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it just ripples
Yeah.
through the whole practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
That hire is a very important piece of it. So I guess, so let's say, put a scenario out there that some people might be finding themselves in, is if they're listening, that they brought on an associate, they have this ideal dream of what it means to them, and maybe either the associate is listening or the dental practice owner, it's not working. So what advice, or I realize it's a short podcast and we could talk about this for
Sure.
weeks.
Yeah, we
But
could.
yeah, what actionable thing could you give someone today to start kind of mending that relationship?
Go for it, Bryton.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, my immediate thought was to give us a call, because we love helping existing partnerships already that may be on the fritz or having problems. But if you don't have that time, you don't have the opportunity. Our process is all about finding clarity. What we have found is that as dentists, you go to school to learn how to take care of people's teeth. We like to refer to dentists as medical engineers, if you will. This is kind of this blend, and it tends to bring in not, and this is very generic statements, but there's a lot of dentists that we talk with that have a hard time with confrontation, with being able to actually address problems and conflict, because it makes them so nervous. And I think that's pretty normal. I don't think that's just with dentists. I think most people don't enjoy necessarily being able to provide criticism. So anyways, going back to the point, we have found that one of the number one causes for relationships or dental associateships or partnerships to be on the fritz is the lack of clarity and lack of communication. And like, oh, Bryton, those are super taboo terms right now. So what does that actually look like? How often are you actually having chart reviews? How often are you meeting as a partnership and team to discuss specific cases and to provide feedback to each other? I would say if you're in this relationship, probably never. Most partnerships and associates start off with good intentions of like, oh yeah, we'll touch base, we'll have our meetings once a week, once a month, every quarter, whatever it is. And practices just get busy and busier and busier, and they tend to put their partnership and associateship on the back burner because they may have drama from other team members or whatever it may be. And it just ends up building this resentment, just like you see in a marriage, where eventually people don't want to talk to each other and it's just better to part ways. So in order to find clarity, you need to engage in the conversations that will allow you to find that clarity in your partnership to see if it actually is, if it is going to work. But Bob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I think another thing that we have found, Katie, is super powerful is using some tools like disc surveys or some type of personality survey to actually understand each other at a deeper level, a more concrete level, what your motivations are, why you respond the way you do, because so often we get into these relationships and the irony is that we, unless we really become schooled in the whole thinking of how different personality styles show up, we typically expect somebody's going to respond to something the way we do. Okay. And when that doesn't happen, then conflict takes place. We get offended, misunderstandings occur, all these different dynamics just trickle down simply because we're expecting them to be like us. The reality is 75% of the population isn't like us, but how can we actually respect those differences and instead of having them compete with each other, complement each other? And that's been one of the biggest tools that we have found really helps with partnerships. And I agree with Bryton. If somebody's in a partnership that is failing, a third party actually can really help right the ship. Okay. Because sometimes, just like going to a counselor, you're in it so deep that you just don't see how you can get out of it. Okay. And we've helped a lot of really excellent partnerships now that were really struggling to begin with get this clarity back, regain this respect, synergize together, and man, just take off. And it's exciting to see.
Yeah.
when it can happen. And that's why we call the umbrella dentist partner pros, because not only are we working on creating a partnership with an associate and with the team, but if the partnership itself is struggling, we've got answers for that.
That's really great. And we
Okay.
talked about this in our conversation before, but conflict resolution is just it's a difficult thing for everyone,
For
but
most everybody, yeah.
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 But I definitely feel like the dental profession and dentists in general, and I'm making a generalization here, but a lot of dentists have chosen dentistry because they are conflict averse. And
Very
so
much so.
so to have someone, like you said, a third party to come in and do that conflict resolution for your practice, and even if it's, a one-time thing, to have someone come in and look
Yeah.
and give advice, I'm sure could mend relationships. But that is a very scary thing for a lot of people to sign up for. It's like, think about your patients who don't want to come see you. They're just electively signing up for a root canal, right? Instead of just waiting till it hurts, right? It's the same for a lot of people. Signing up to do conflict resolution sounds like I'd rather get a root canal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so our approach to that isn't really directly, let's get in a room together and duke it out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's much more a process of discovery. Okay. And through the process of discovery, it's amazing how the tension starts to drain out of the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Empathy enters, and malice leaves. It's really fun. It's some of our favorite work we love to do, because and you also have to think about the other options. If you are sitting in this, let's say, not thriving dental partnership, what are your options, right? You either can continue on until you get burnt out and tired and maybe you decide to leave, or you cut the tie then, or you find a way to work through it. All of them have different costs, different consequences associated with them. So I guess you really just have to ask your question of, what are the consequences that I want? We have found that if you push forward and try to make a partnership work, it can really flip the other way around and create magic and autonomy and some really exciting things for your patients. So
yeah, I love that. And that's part of specifically why I wanted to bring you guys on for this month, this topic, because that we've talked culture is at this point is just this like buzzword that means nothing at this point. And we say it often, and like, create a better culture and it'll reduce burnout and people will stop leaving your practice and yada yada yada, but it all comes down to conflict in the practice, and it's so important to address that. And like you said, what do you want to do about it?
Right. And the flip side of that is, on a proactive side, it comes down to leadership. For anybody who is listening today, one thing, if this resonates with you, we'd love to visit with you. Okay. Free of charge, and see what we could do to help. But the other thing is, just go to Amazon and search for my book, Flip Your Focus. Okay. Igniting People, Profits, and Performance Through Upside Down Leadership. And it's written with the dental professional in mind, but also targeting small business owners in particular. How can we unburden ourselves from feeling and literally being the chief everything officer, which is a guaranteed burnout, to becoming the chief empowerment officer, which then is the whole idea. How can I make my team my hands? Okay.
Yeah.
And when that happens, and I see it all the time with clients, Katie, and dental engineers, like prosthodontists who, at the very height of being engineers, can learn, I actually can lead. And I can actually create a team around myself. And I love your phrase, lifers. A team around me that really want to be here. They bought into our vision. But the coolest thing is, not only have they bought off in the vision, they do their jobs, they love what they do, and they reduce my stress. Okay.
Yeah,
And that's
really
probably
great.
one of the greatest wins of leadership in reality, if you do it effectively, is that you start to take all the monkeys off your back and give them to your team, and they can manage them.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. I heard a phrase so long ago in business that we don't really leave jobs, we leave bosses.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
Which
that
is
phrase.
so true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't leave jobs, we leave bosses, because, like Bryton's phrase, clarity. What's the clarity among the team itself? Do they really know where we're going and why? Do they know their roles? Did they know how to work through conflict? How are they being rewarded for when you win? Is it a toxic environment with the boss, which we've encountered? Is it a boss who just decides to carry it all on themselves and doesn't know how to delegate or is afraid to? Or is it an environment where they actually become, and I know empowered is a buzzword also, but literally what empowered means is, do they plug in fully to your mission, know their parts well, and perform them optimally with really great feedback?
Yeah. Really good.
Okay. And those people become lifers because they're bought into you as a leader. Simon Sinek, who's one of my favorites writers in today's culture, he said one time, we don't follow a leader because of what it does for them. We follow because of what it does for us.
Yeah. Really well said. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love I love the idea of flipping it just a little bit, and then we might go over just a tiny bit on time, but I think
Sure.
it's important that if you are in this position as an associate or even a hygienist or an office manager,
Mhm.
that you don't need to wait for your practice owner to give you the baton to be a leader. You can take that on yourself. So what does that look like, or what advice do you have for someone who's just waiting in the wings, I guess?
Great question. We like to say that leadership is not a title, it's a decision.
That's so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leadership is not a title, it's a decision.
Yeah.
And it's really the first decisions that you make are letting go of the blame game. Okay. Which is so easy for us to engage in. And then learning how to hit the reset button, which means how can I take the lessons and leave the losses behind. And those two little actions right there instantly start to flip you into the mindset of being a leader, wherever you are in a practice. Okay. We've learned over the years that leaders don't blame, leaders solve. Okay. So those two activities, and then it's seeking clarity. Okay. To understand your roles, your goals, how you plug in, and learning then as a team, how can you start to solve your own problems?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that, seeking clarity. Don't wait for them to
Don't
seek
wait.
after it. Because it's oftentimes it's not out of malice or they're just, dental practice owners are especially dental practice owners are some of the busiest people I've ever known in my life.
They are.
And
Absolutely.
and more than likely it's just because it's not in their capacity. And so if you can come to them, right, with, hey, this is what I want to take on, I'm sure they would be over the moon about it. Yeah, for sure. Really great. Well, I could talk for another hour and a half, and we'll have you back on.
We would love that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, but there is a question that we ask every single person that comes on the show, because we're all about growth here at Dental Intelligence, and growth can mean something to everyone. And so for both of you that have helped people grow in leadership in their teams, which obviously then helps production and productivity, what does, I guess, growth in dentistry mean to both of you? And it can be either, both. One of you can answer if you want.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two sides of it for me, but our mission here at Dentist Partner Pros is to help create thriving partnerships, associateships, and teams. And then, like, the second part of that is so that working or being at the practice, whatever you want to define it as, if we can relieve stress there, then maybe they can have a little bit happier life outside of it too. And so growth is relieving that stress, but growing into becoming a better version of ourselves. And it doesn't have to be the doctor owner. It can be anyone and everyone, whether you're brand new assistant or brand new front desk, or you've been a hygienist for the last 40 years, whatever it is. It's growing where you put your feet, and hopefully that can relieve and help you be happier in other parts of your life too.
That's awesome.
And Katie, my definition of growth in dentistry, I'm going to take a little bit bigger picture. I remember reading an article by Dr. Paul Homeley about 10 years ago, and it was a fictional retirement party for somebody who was retiring out of dentistry after, 40 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And the point he made just was so profound to me. And I see this with clients so often. And this is, if I can just say, this is one of the reasons why we're so passionate about dentistry, but also ownership in dentistry. Okay. Because I'll make 2 points. The first is, you can make a living working for somebody else, but you can only make a life working for yourself. Okay. And in making that life, one of the things I love about this industry is to actually become a very successful dentist. The things that it causes you to refine within yourself are dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the point of Paul's article. He said it wasn't the money, it was what it forced me to become.
Yeah. I love that.
And that is just, I read that and I thought, that is so spot on.
It is. It's so profound.
Yeah. Because literally, to succeed and grow in this industry, you are going to become something totally different in the end than you were in the beginning.
I mean, some of you that have listened before know. So my dad was a dentist, and he
Yeah.
practiced for a long time and passed away at 65. He kept a journal every day of his life.
Oh, wow.
And as I read it, from when he first started his practice to up until he passed away, watching his growth. And that's what made me think of it when you said that, was countless days, every day, almost every day, I would walk by his office and he would be learning something or reading something on leadership or business or learning more about dentistry. Right. And that is what changed him over time. And that just really hit home to me. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's really awesome.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Well, this has been great, and we'll have you on again, because this is one of my favorite topics. So, but
ours too.
Yeah,
us too.
This has been Growth in Dentistry, a Dental Intelligence podcast. Again, special thanks to Bob Spill and Bryton Nield from Dental Partner Pro, not plural. And you can visit them at dentistpartnerpros.com. Right? That good?
Yes,
Dentist
Partner Pros. Yeah.
We'll make sure to have that in the show notes as well. And you can visit them. And also I'll put a link to the Amazon for your Flip Your Focus book in case people want to find that there as well. So you'll be able to find those links also on our webpage at dentalintel.com. So thank you again, specifically to our marketing department for all their work on this podcast. I'm Katie Poulsen. Keep growing.